Hey, this is Mark at the Monroe Pop Fest. I'm here with Michigan born and raised artist Bill Morrison. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. How you doing?
Pretty good. Tell us, how did you get hooked up with, is it Matt Groening or Groening? Groening. I just want to make sure I got his name right.
He always says his name rhymes with complaining.
So, like, before you met him, tell us a little bit about your career.
Well, I went to the College for Creative Studies here in Detroit. And the first 2 years out of college, I worked at a place in Livonia doing technical illustration for the auto industry. Went out to California, and the first thing I did before I met Matt Groening was movie posters. So I worked for a company that was kind of like a boutique ad agency for the movie industry. So I did a lot of like 80s posters.
Which ones were those?
I did one, probably the one that's best known is a movie called House.
William Catt.
I did the art for that.
It's a great one.
Thank you. But yeah, I did a lot of schlocky ones too that people don't remember.
Tell us about that.
Well, there was one called Blood Diner, another horror movie.
Heard of it.
There was a kind of a teen sex comedy called Loose Screws.
Was that that was a Canadian movie, right?
Canadian. These are the kind of movies that nowadays they would go like direct to video or direct to drive-in.
I think I first watched them on cable TV back in the 80s.
Exactly. They kind of bypassed the theater, you know. But I met Matt Groening while I was working at this particular job, and it was before he created The Simpsons. So he was a young, kind of struggling writer, and he used to write copy for the movie posters, like the taglines. And he worked on greeting cards and all kinds of things. So I did a few projects with him. And then, a few years later, he started The Simpsons. And I got recruited to help draw all the merchandise art. So that was initially it's kind of like my entry into The Simpsons was in 1990 doing artwork for T-shirts and video game boxes and all the stuff that came out in the 90s that all you 40-somethings remember from when you were kids.
Now, you started, was it Bongo Comics with Matt, correct? What was that experience like?
That was amazing. We were doing a magazine titled Simpsons Illustrated. And in that magazine, it was kind of like a fan magazine for Simpsons fans, and it had articles and, game pages. And it was a variety of things. But one of the things in the magazine was a comic section. So we started doing comics within the magazine, and we did 2 annuals. So the first year we did a 3D issue. That was the annual. And then the second year came along, we had to start thinking about, well, what do we do to sort of top the 3D issue? Something gimmicky that's not like a regular issue. And somebody suggested, why don't we just do an all comics issue? So originally it was going to be like an all comics version of the magazine, but then somebody, probably Matt, thought, well, what if we made it look like an actual comic book? We shrunk it down to comic size. We could even give it a different title as like an homage to Disney. And we called it Simpsons Comics and Stories after Walt Disney Comics and Stories. And so anyway, that issue came out, and it was such a big success that it gave Matt the confidence to start a company. So he there were a few of us involved, a handful of people, and he came to us and said, how would you guys like to start a comic book company, and we'll do this full time? And it was a dream come true.
That led to you working on Futurama.
Yes. So I was working as editor of the comic book line, and also doing artwork, doing covers, occasional stories when I had the time. And Matt came in one day and he said, I'm working on this new TV show idea. I'd like some help helping, I'd like someone to help me sort of visualize what I'm thinking for the characters. So I went over to his studio in the evenings for a couple of weeks, and he would give me like a line, maybe a couple of sentences long, about a character. And it was probably something like, okay, I have this character Leela, and she's a cyclops, and she's an alien, and she knows martial arts. So he would sort of give me that much to go on. I would do a bunch of sketches and then show those to him. And that would spark him creatively. So sometimes he wouldn't see anything in my drawings that was anything close to what he was thinking. But he would go, I don't know, I kind of like the hair, but everything else is not what I'm thinking. How about something like this? And then he would do a sketch, throw it back to me, and then I would riff on that, and we would kind of go back and forth. Ultimately, all the characters really looked the way Matt wanted them to look. So part of my job was sort of to show him what he didn't want, so it would help him to kind of visualize what he did want.
Cool. Now, do you like coming to these cons?
I do. I think it's kind of an important thing for a cartoonist to meet the people that read and appreciate the work that we do. It's kind of a solitary job. Most of us just sort of sit in a room in our studio or wherever by ourselves, with music on or with the TV on, and we just, we churn this stuff out, and then it gets printed, and unless you go out and sort of engage with the fans, you don't really know what people think about it. Sometimes you'll see a review, but you really don't know whether or not what you've done is good until you get people coming to your table and you see that kind of enthusiasm and they want to buy more of your stuff or they want to buy the original artwork. So it's important, and it's gratifying.
So what do you got coming down the pipeline?
Working on, now that I'm back in Michigan, I'm freelance, so I'm not working for a company, but I'm working on all kinds of things. I'm teaching at the College for Creative Studies where I went to school. I'm working on some...
By the way, that should help with people enrolling into the creative studies, to having a teacher like this there.
I hope so. I don't know. A lot of the students that I have, when they find out that I'm teaching and they see that I worked on Futurama and I worked on Disenchantment, it's exciting for them because they want a teacher who's actually been there in the trenches and can tell them stories and teach them how it's really done. And so that's been great. I'm working on advertising for some feature animated films coming up that I can't really talk about yet because I signed an NDA.
Don't blame you.
I'm working on relaunching my Roswell Little Green Man comic book. There's a company in France that wants to publish it. And they also want, I pitched them some other ideas for comic books. And so I'm working on 2 or 3 ideas that will probably appear first in France, weirdly, and then be translated back into English if we find a publisher here.
It's exciting news.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of different things.
Where can people find you these days?
Well, I'm online on Facebook, just my name, Bill Morrison, Atomic Battery Studios, which is my studio name. But I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm at shows like this all the time now.